For a while now, rumors have been circulating about a fifth park that was originally planned to come to Walt Disney World called the Dark Kingdom, centered around Disney villains. But is there any truth to these rumors? No, sorry. But it does speak to a prevalent interest that fans have for more Disney villain content in the theme parks. And while the rumors of the Dark Kingdom are almost certainly not true, Disney has taken notice of them, and in recent years they've leaned into it with after-hours events like the Disney Villains After Hours that I was actually able to attend back in 2019. And it definitely seems like Disney has been testing the waters for future Disney villain content in their theme parks. So could this mean a Dark Kingdom park in the future? Possibly, I don't have a crystal ball. But what if there was a Disney villain theme park? What would that look like? What would that even be? As a Disney villain merch collector, I feel like I'm uniquely qualified to talk about this subject. So I'm going to be doing a video series outlining how I would handle the Dark Kingdom if I was put in charge of it. Each video is going to focus on a different land of the park, so stay tuned and I hope you guys enjoy. Like I said in my last video, this is my concept for how I would handle the Dark Kingdom at Disney World if I was given complete creative control. Before I get too deep in the weeds here, I do want to establish some ground rules. Namely, that this is solely a creative endeavor by a fan. This is not based on real-world situations, finances, or anything of the sort. This whole series is based on the premise of what if I could do whatever I want, basically. So with that in mind, I wouldn't want it to just be a Disney villain park. One of the biggest draws to the Disney parks is they have park original content and characters. So I'd want to operate under the premise that the Dark Kingdom was a shadowy land that the Disney villains took over / inhabit. But it's one that also has characters and stories of its own. With my concept, there would be 6 different lands to explore, as well as the castle. These would be Maleficent's Castle, the Walk of Infamy, Villain's Village, the Haunted Forest, Sea Witch Lagoon, Sinister City, and the Ghost Town. And in the coming videos, I'm going to do a video on what each of these areas is going to be and what types of rides and attractions would be there. Continuing on with my discussion of how I would handle the Dark Kingdom Disney Villains Park at Walt Disney World, let's talk about the centerpiece attraction, Maleficent's Castle. Maleficent herself is pretty much the main Disney villain. She's the biggest and most popular one of them all. And she's the one with the most recognizable castle, so it would just make logical sense for her castle to be the centerpiece attraction. Now, normally her castle at the Forbidden Mountains in the movie is very green and very mossy, but I kind of feel like that wouldn't really look good in the parks, and I don't think it would match the aesthetic of the rest of the park. So inspired by this shot in the movie, where the castle is illuminated by lightning, I think you gotta go with the purple and black aesthetic with the castle. Just like Sleeping Beauty Castle is pink, even though it's not in the actual movie, I think this is a good way to keep the villain's color scheme intact and also pay homage to the original castle without just duplicating it. Over in Sleeping Beauty Castle at Disneyland, there's a walkthrough attraction that takes you through scenes from the film. That walkthrough used to be much more Maleficent focused and a lot spookier. And that earlier, spookier, illusion-based walkthrough is something that I think would be really cool inside of this castle. But I also think inside the castle you gotta have a meet and greet spot for Maleficent. She's basically going to be the mascot of the entire park, so having her have a meet and greet area inside the castle in her throne room would just be really cool. In the courtyard out front of the castle there should of course be a Maleficent statue. And I think it would also be really cool to have costume characters based around Maleficent's goons wandering around this area. Have them constantly asking guests if they've seen the baby Aurora. Because you know they're still looking for that baby to this day. During the Disney Villains After Hours event at the Magic Kingdom, they would periodically have the Maleficent Dragon float making its rounds. And I definitely think we should have an equivalent for that here in the Dark Kingdom. But Maleficent's Castle is only the centerpiece. I've still got lots more ideas, so stay tuned for the other areas of the park that we're going to cover next time. So last time when we were talking about the Dark Kingdom, I talked about the centerpiece of the park, Maleficent's Castle. But what about the first impression for when you first walk into the park? Well, first off, I think right away you need to have a statue of the Evil Queen right there in the courtyard. She was the first movie villain, and she deserves to be the first thing you see the second you enter the park. Beyond her, though, is our equivalent to Main Street USA, an area I'm calling the Walk of Infamy. As you can probably guess, the Walk of Infamy would be sort of a pastiche on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And all the major Disney villains would have their star on the Walk of Infamy. The whole area would be based around the premise of like all the Disney villains having sort of a celebrity status. This is where you put in your shopping opportunities, and I think this is the perfect place to bring back Villains in Vogue from Disney's Hollywood Studios. And also the Candy Cauldron from Disney Springs. You've also got to have some dining opportunities here, and I'm personally partial to the Big Bad Barbecue. I'd also want there to be a House of Villains as a tribute to Mickey's House of Villains. This area would be a character meet and greet area for the villains who don't have other meet and greet spots elsewhere in the park. Most notably, I think Cruella de Vil should meet out here out front. But I'd also want this area to have surprise celebrity guests. and use that opportunity to bring back some more obscure villains for meet and greet opportunities, like Ratigan for instance. I also think the House of Villains should have a small theater section that constantly plays villain clips and villain songs. Because you know we gotta have one, come on. The Walk of Infamy would then empty out into the castle courtyard from Maleficent's castle, and there would of course be castle shows there regularly every day. Maybe move Villains Unite the Night over here, that'd be fun. And we've still got 5 more areas of the park to explore, so stay tuned. Moving on with my concept for the Dark Kingdom Park at Walt Disney World, the next area we're going to cover is Villains Village, the dark equivalent of Fantasyland. And as you can probably guess, this whole area is going to look like a dark version of Fantasyland, and there's going to be Maleficent thorns all over the area. And this is the area where we're putting back Snow White's Scary Adventures. Now the Evil Queen's Scary Adventures. And I want to use this opportunity to make a remake of the original version of the ride when the park first opened. Traumatize a whole new generation. In this area, I also want to put a Dungeon Mystery Tour. Yeah, that's right, we're bringing back Cinderella Castle Mystery Tour from Tokyo Disneyland. Maybe replace the Evil Queen and Maleficent sections with different villains since they've got attractions elsewhere, but we're definitely keeping the Horned King. If there's one place for this attraction to exist, it is in the Dark Kingdom. Other attractions that I would want to be in this area include a Cave of Wonders expedition thrill ride. Have Jafar send you on a roller coaster attraction to go get the magic lamp for him as the entire cave is falling around you and turning to lava? It'd be perfect. Another new attraction that I'd want to do is a Pirates of the Caribbean style boat ride on the River Styx. Have Hades take you on a tour of the underworld with Pain and Panic along the way. And there definitely needs to be a really cool Cerberus animatronic guarding the gates. It just has to happen. I'm also partial to a dark ride that focuses on original witch characters. Sort of boosts the park's own original lore as well. We also 100% need a Stromboli marionette show. It just has to happen. It just does. I also think there should be a dining experience centered around Lady Tremaine, maybe a coffee tea shop. And all the employees have to wear like Cinderella maid outfits. Villains Village would probably be the most recognizable and iconic area of the park, but there's still 4 other areas we've yet to cover, so stay tuned with me as we cover them next time. The next area to cover in my hypothetical Dark Kingdom concept is the Haunted Forest. Now this area would be a little bit more experimental, and I'm taking heavy influence from the Villains Grove attraction at the Oogie Boogie Bash in Disneyland. Basically, the Haunted Forest would be a series of wooded trails that would be decorated within the aesthetic of various Disney villains. Throughout this area, you would find various illusions and projections that correspond to different Disney villains, and even a few illusions depicting villains themselves. The whole idea here is to be one of the most atmospheric areas of the park. And having an area that also sort of doubles as a walkthrough attraction would just be a whole new level of immersion into the storytelling of the park that I think would be really, really cool. I love the whole story idea of the spirits of the forest coming to life to reflect the various villains who dwell in the land. And I think this is a perfect opportunity to show off awesome Disney magic effects. But towards the edge of the forest you start to notice hyena silhouettes. And beyond that is the elephant graveyard from The Lion King. There would definitely be an interactive Scar meet and greet opportunity here, kind of inspired by the Donkey meet and greet over at Universal. And just past him is the Boneyard Slider roller coaster. Because the elephant graveyard lends itself way too well to a roller coaster attraction. Hopping over to the other side of the forest, you can find Madam Min's cottage. This would be a dining opportunity where you could go to get some horribly wholesome treats to celebrate making it out of the Haunted Forest alive. But the Haunted Forest is not the last area on our tour. Stay tuned, we've got 3 more areas to cover in future videos. As we venture further into this hypothetical Dark Kingdom, we find ourselves in Sea Witch Lagoon. This is our nautical fantasy-inspired area. And sitting there in the lagoon is Captain Hook's pirate ship itself, the Jolly Roger. And much like Mark Twain's riverboat, the Jolly Roger will give you boat rides around Sea Witch Lagoon. Along the voyage, you'll see such sights as Skull Rock, and a very hungry crocodile who thinks that you are Captain Hook. We'd also, of course, have a Captain Hook meet and greet near the loading docks for the Jolly Roger. But the signature attraction of this land is going to be our Splash Mountain water ride equivalent, Ursula's Poor Unfortunate Voyage. Follow Ursula as she obtains the trident, and uses it to send you down rapids and drops across a watery river. But I also think we need a Tower of Terror style drop attraction. And what better choice than to drop into Lalatai, the realm of monsters from Moana. Fall into this nautical blacklight world, as a certain shiny crab waits to gobble you up at the bottom. For a much calmer attraction, we need a nice pirate boat ride. But we've got to differentiate it from Pirates of the Caribbean, so my thinking is we do an Odyssey-inspired ride. Take your pirate crew and sail past animatronics inspired by the Sirens, the Cyclops, and even Scylla and Charybdis at the very end. If you get hungry, go stop by Long John Silver's Spyglass Tavern for some seafood dinner. And for shopping, head on down to Madame Medusa's Pawn Shop Boutique. But in the back of Medusa's pawn shop is a secret pirate tunnel that actually goes underneath the Sea Witch Lagoon. And the tunnels lead you out to Skull Rock, which is mostly just a cool photo op spot. But maybe there's a giant diamond inside that a certain someone's been looking for. Sea Witch Lagoon is going to be an area for the daring and the adventurous, but we still have 2 other areas of the park to explore, so stay tuned. As we venture further into my Dark Kingdom concept park, we're going to go to our next area, the Sinister City. So in the tradition of New Orleans Square in Disneyland or Disney's Hollywood Studios, I wanted to do a fictionalized version of a real location. And for a park inspired by decadent scoundrels, there's no better choice than Las Vegas. The facade of this area would be a twisted version of the Sin City through the Disney villain aesthetic. And the centerpiece would be a casino run by the Queen of Hearts herself, called the Croquet Mallet. Get it? Get it? The casino would basically be a Dave & Buster's style arcade with Wonderland-themed games and activities. The Croquet Mallet would also have a couple of theaters there. One of them would be for a Vegas-style magic show featuring Dr. Facilier, because that would be the greatest thing ever. The other would be a family-friendly Vegas showgirl show, with fashions inspired by various Disney villains. I mean, you don't even have to change Yzma's, it all just fit. Speaking of Yzma, I know you guys all want that Secret Lab roller coaster, and by golly, this is where we're gonna put it. This ride just makes itself. But another thrill ride I'd like to do is a spinning attraction based on Oogie Boogie's roulette wheel. You know I couldn't do a Disney villain Las Vegas without him. And of course, I would also really like to do a House of DeVille fashion show starring Cruella DeVille. And if you do a good enough job designing them, you can actually sell them Disney. You're welcome. In general, this would be an area that would be really good for embracing the decadence and flair that goes with being a villain. But we've still got one more stop on our tour, so join me next time as I talk about the Ghost Town. And now it's time for the final stop on our hypothetical Dark Kingdom tour, the Ghost Town. Now, the Ghost Town would be a play on the old western ghost towns, but it would also be the most haunted place in America. The whole area would have a very eerie and abandoned feeling to it. And all the cast members working in this area would be implied to be ghosts. And though the Haunted Mansion is staying right where it is over in Magic Kingdom, this is the place where we are bringing afterlife to the idea of the Museum of the Weird. If you don't know, the Museum of the Weird was an attraction meant to go along with the Haunted Mansion originally. It was a museum of strange and macabre artifacts. And I think it would be perfect to resurrect it over here. In this area, we're also going to have a fast-moving Sleepy Hollow-inspired dark ride where you have to outrun the Headless Horseman. Can you cross that bridge in time, or will the Headless Horseman finally get ahead? Something that a lot of places do around Halloween are ghost tours. A guide escorts a large group of people throughout various different locations that are supposedly haunted, and storytellers tell ghost stories that correspond to those areas. And I think that would just be really fun to do here. Especially because Disney can use this tour to tell the backstories of the various ghosts of the Haunted Mansion. And of course, the stories themselves would rotate so that the tour would be different every time. Now, I know a lot of you wanted the original Alien Encounter attraction to come back in this park in some way, shape, or form. Unfortunately, the original doesn't really fit in the theming of any of my areas of the park, but we're going to use the same Theater in the Round scary format for a new attraction, Paranormal Encounter. Basically the same ride, just themed to ghosts instead. A psychic medium would be our host trying to get into touch with spirits from the other side. But Frollo from the Hunchback of Notre Dame would interrupt and try to put a stop to this witchcraft. However, because of his interference, the process gets botched, and something terrible slips through the cracks. An entity from beyond the grave arrives in this area and wreaks havoc upon the guests. And of course, towering over this area is our centerpiece attraction, Bald Mountain. An Expedition Everest-style roller coaster that puts you into contact with Chernobog himself. The Ghost Town would be an area to celebrate the scary and horrifying sides of Disney. And it is the last stop on our tour of this hypothetical park. So, what did you guys think? Did you like my ideas? Did you like the park? Would you have fun here? And what are some ideas that you yourself have for the Dark Kingdom that I didn't cover? Be sure to like and comment, and have a magical day.